Hi, I'm Cheryl Farrell, and welcome to today's episode of Stories by the Sisterhood of Black Women Over 50. In keeping with the oral storytelling tradition, we hear stories by Black women of a certain age. My guest today is Diane Griggs, who's a licensed clinical social worker and community activist born and raised in Los Angeles. A theme of motherhood fills Diane's life, even though she's never given birth. She's a self-described mother to many hundreds and has counseled at-risk youth for more than 40 years in public and nonprofit agencies. Diane is a servant leader, acutely attuned to a power greater than self. Please welcome and say hello to Diane. Hi, Diane.
Hey, Cheryl, we finally did it. We have made it. We are here.
We are here. Now, we go back a ways.
We do.
And I wonder if you would share with our audience how we know each other.
Oh, my goodness. So, this was a destined friendship. We met in college. Cheryl and I pledged at the same time Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, Alpha Gamma Chapter UCLA, Go Bruins.
Yay.
And there were 5 of us. I don't know how we made it. But a sisterhood for life. I feel blessed. I feel blessed for you.
I am blessed knowing you as well. It's as if you took the words right off my script. Thank you so much. I think it's interesting that when you're a young co-ed in college and you join a sorority because it's the cute thing to do, there may be some cute boys in the proposition. You have no idea that decades later, and we won't tell how many decades, but decades later, there is this connection that sees us through difficult times and joyous times. And it is such a delight to have this forum, these stories from the sisterhood, to give evidence of that connection. So the way we do these interviews is that there's our lightning round. This is kind of reverse order from my quiz show days. I'm going to ask a few questions and you can give me your responses. Here we go. If you were to describe your life calling, what would you say it is?
To be a service provider, to service my community, humanity, to show up and show out. And, given these kind of turbulent times, and I'm questioning, like, why am I here? And I'm here to do the work. And I think I chose to be here and I have work to do. And that, I think, is my purpose. And my family had that purpose. We didn't talk about it, but through their actions and through their hard work, that's what happened for us, my sisters and I.
And where were you born?
I was born in Inglewood, California. And at that time, if you were a Black woman giving birth, you could only birth at County Hospital. But my mom knew about Daniel Freeman, and that's where all 3 of us were born. She was determined to make sure her children had the best health care. We had to go to the doctors, the best dentists, because she didn't have that.
What are 3 words that describe you?
Faithful, committed, and loyal.
In a few words, tell me, what was your biggest challenge in life?
I feel that the greatest challenge for me was actually a rock climbing adventure. It's a metaphor for life. It was part of a culmination activity for a yoga training that I had participated in. So we would go rock climbing at Joshua Tree. And I had done this before, but on this particular occasion, it was God talked to me in a very uncomfortable way. So I'm climbing up this rock, and I'm fearful, but I am going to climb up this rock because I'm determined. I climb up this rock and I'm halfway up, and this voice says to me, "You are not strong enough to get up this rock. You don't have enough core strength." And I'm like, "Oh, Lord, have mercy." And I froze. And then I went up a little bit more, and then the voice comes back to me and says, "You are not smart enough to get up this rock." And I'm like, oh my God, I'm stuck. I'm literally stuck. I can't move. And I know that I need to get up this rock. That's not even an option. An option to go back down, that's not an option. So I'm there for a long time, trying to figure out what to do when I'm immobilized. I realized that I had been climbing incorrectly. And this has been my metaphor for life. So ideally, the way you're supposed to climb is using your legs and your hips, so it's the feminine principle. It's like the yin part of your body, and you use that to climb. But I had been climbing like yang, like a man, like pulling myself up, really gritty and not honoring my feminine principle, actually. And that's how I was living my life. You fight through it, you marshal through it. You don't no time to rejuvenate, which is also kind of a feminine principle. Girl, I got up that rock because I realized in that moment, I need to honor that part. And even in life, I had ignored my femininity for some reason. Like, I think as women of color, Black women, we're taught you have to be competitive. You have to ignore those soft pieces, those vulnerable pieces. So I got up the rock, and then coming down is a breeze. I just love, coming down. But I didn't realize, even in that adventure, and it was a success because I learned to climb differently, to use my legs, to use my feet, to ground myself, to honor those feminine principles. My whole life changed, and because I was able to honor those pieces. And even in my Tai Chi, we talk about yin and yang, and I was always a little bit too yangy, too expressive, too much using my arms and not enough yin. And so there's 3 sets to our Tai Chi. There's heaven, earth, and man. So earth is the yin. And so that was the hardest set for me to feel comfortable with, to grasp. I hated it. I was like, ooh, this, it's terrible. But I recognize it's because I also didn't recognize the feminine principle in me. So I think that was my hardest lesson, but a lifelong lesson that's sustaining in everything that I do.
Thank you for sharing that, Diane. I think it's fascinating how something physical, secular, ordinary ends up being a lesson for our spirit. So we've worked together in developing story segments, and there's one titled Black Patent Leather Shoes.
So that's a childhood memory. And growing up, I always had these powerful women in my life: my grandmother, my aunts, my mom, my great aunts. And I never imagined not being a mother. So I would fantasize as a young girl about being a mom. And of course, what a mom must do, they dress their children up, they take them to church with their black patent leather shoes. So that had been my dream, that I would be a mother to children and to take my little girls in black patent leather shoes. I really wanted some red ones, but of course, I didn't have red ones. We have white ones for Easter and black ones for the Christmas holidays. So my parents, my whole family was about community service and serving their community, as well as making changes for people of color, Black people in particular. And church was the way that we did it. My family was highly involved in our church, leaders in our church, and that was extremely important to me. And through that service, I developed who I am as a social worker in the career. I never did have children. I think, as you and I talked before, God had a different plan for me. So I feel like I birthed projects, and I always mothered the young people that I come across, whether there's young people that I served or folks that I supervise or mentor. And it feels weird to offer up that mothering experience. But even I think my archetype is the Black Madonna. I don't know if I actually have a Black Madonna. Let me show her off here. We didn't plan for this, but here we go. That's her. And that's my archetype. And I had to reconcile not birthing any children, but to be honest with you, I don't know. My life is so full of service. I don't know how I could do that and do that well. And it's so important for me to show up and do things well. I've got children that I absolutely love and adore, and have seen them grow up. And so it took me a long time to reconcile not birthing any babies. I'm still maybe even talking about it right now, not really fully reconciled, but it's not a regret. And I love my path.
Thank you so much for your vulnerability. I know we've shared this discussion many times over the years. What comes to mind is that birthing isn't necessarily about a womb and a body. That I like this idea of birthing projects, but also helping young people, however you meet them, find their way. And that's what mothering is. Diane, I know I've known you for many years. I feel like I'm still learning. I say that every time I have an interview, but that's what's happening here. Thank you for sharing your passion, your experience. But I want to close out now with some final thoughts. What would you say is your most important lesson in life?
I know it sounds like a cliche, but what comes to mind is let go and let God, because you and I talked. I had a plan, girl, and that plan got busted up when I was 27, and it was all God. And God has led me to my profession, to the people that I know, to my work, being an AKA, going to UCLA because I only applied to one university, and thank goodness I got in. It was God. Let go and let God. God knows, and be faithful, and just do your journey. Show up.
Profound. Absolutely profound. Thank you. If you were, and this may be answering the question already, but if you were to give some advice, recommend a book or something to young sisters, what would that be?
Well, a book that I absolutely adore is The Secret Lives of Bees. And it's also about motherhood and sisterhood. I highly recommend it. There's such a beautiful story. I could talk a lot about it, but I won't. I'll just leave it there and encourage folks to read The Secret Life of Bees.
Lastly, what dream are you working on?
Oh my goodness. So you think it'd be the retirement, but I love my work so much. So that's not it. But I do want a different kind of home. You know, when you're our age, we think about home in a different way. And I'm ready for that switch. I want my own home that I could decorate and do things differently, and be free. And as it is interesting, because as I evolved into my life, I had these different ideas about what my home would look like and what it would be. And my home is, in my vision, is so completely different than I had when I was, say, 27 or 47. It's just so fascinating. So I'm working on that dream.
Great. Well, I know about those dreams in differences in decades. When I was young, I want a view, and I want to have a circular driveway. Now, girl, I just want it near the hospital. I just want your needs differ as you age. I don't know. Your story is rich and powerful and makes a difference in the world. And I'm so glad that you've given us this time. Are there any parting words you wanna offer as we close out?
I don't know parting words, so it's just a thought. Like, we've been talking about this for a little bit, and I hear you say how powerful it is, and it's hard for me to grasp that, because it just feels like it's just me, that I'm just kind of doing what any other person would do. So I thank you for sharing that, but it's just, again, it's kind of like the story you and I talked about when I wanted to change my career. No, I'm kidding, because I made a documentary about the Black social workers, the founding of the National Association of Black Social Workers, and I was so in awe of the profoundness of the product, of the finished product. And I'm like, wow, why are these people all excited? I was having fun. But I birthed that project, and I didn't do all the work in it because I was, it was all about the civil rights and how social workers had a profound role in some of the changes to protecting Black families. But I think it's that same kind of awe. Like I did this because it was fun. I was honoring other folks, and here's this big standing ovation, not for me, but for the work and for the founder that was in our presence in that moment. So it's kind of like that thing. Like I just show up, do my job, and there's a profoundness that comes from it that other people appreciate. That maybe I also need to appreciate in a different way, but I also am want to make sure that I show up in a humble way and not full of look what I did. So I struggle, with that dance of attunement around those pieces. But I do hear you, and I thank you for.
I'm grateful that your humility and just showing up has created this impressive body of work. I think the Sisterhood of Black Women Over 50 has stories that can put up your message, and our ego doesn't interfere with it. We just report on what's there, and we see the lessons from it. You are an excellent example of a Black woman soldiering on and making a way for others. So thank you. It's been a delight being with you today. And I'll be talking with you later, but thank you for that.
Thank you, Cheryl. It was a pleasure. I'm glad we finally, girl, it took us 3 times, but we did it. We did it. Thank you so much. Yeah. I appreciate it. I appreciate you too. I thank God for you. I do. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for our episode of Stories from the Sisterhood of Black Women Over 50. If you want your story told or you want to share anything, please visit the website at the bottom of the screen. Thank you so much. See you next time. Okay.
We did it. Whew.
We did it. Yay!